Is the USA's money printing strategy a ticking time bomb for the global economy? Let's delve into the details and find out. In recent years, the United States has been criticized for its money printing strategy, which some argue is killing the world economy. This strategy, known as quantitative easing, involves the Federal Reserve creating new money to purchase government bonds and other assets in an effort to stimulate economic growth. While the Fed insists that this strategy is necessary to boost the economy, others argue that it has unintended consequences that are harming not just the United States, but also other countries around the world. In this video, we will take a closer look at how the U.S. money printing strategy works and explore the arguments on both sides of the debate. What is quantitative easing? Quantitative easing is a monetary policy tool used by central banks to stimulate economic growth during times of economic slowdown or recession. It involves the purchase of government bonds or other securities by the central bank, which increases the money supply in the economy. The idea behind the QE is to increase the amount of money available for lending and investment, which in turn can lead to increased economic activity and job creation. By buying government bonds or other securities, the central bank injects money into the economy, which can then be lent out by banks and other financial institutions. In order to carry out QE, the central bank typically creates new money electronically, which is then used to purchase government bonds or other securities on the open market. This increases the demand for these securities, which can drive down their yields. Lower yields can then encourage banks and other financial institutions to lend more money, which can help to stimulate economic growth. Quantitative easing is typically used when more traditional monetary policy tools, such as interest rate cuts, are no longer effective. For example, if interest rates are already close to zero, further rate cuts may not be able to stimulate lending and investment. In this case, QE can be used as an alternative tool to increase the money supply and stimulate economic activity. While quantitative easing can be an effective tool for stimulating economic growth, it is not without risks. One of the main concerns with QE is the potential for inflationary pressures to build up over time. If too much money is injected into the economy, it can lead to an increase in prices and decrease in the value of the currency. Another potential risk of QE is that it can lend to asset price bubbles. When the central bank purchases large amount of securities, it can drive up the prices of those securities, which can lead to overvalued markets and bubbles that eventually burst. Despite these risks, many central banks around the world have turned to quantitative easing in recent years as a way to support economic growth. The U.S. Federal Reserve, for example, implemented several rounds of QE following the 2008 financial crisis, and the European Central Bank has also used QE as a tool to stimulate the Eurozone economy. In summary, quantitative easing is a monetary policy tool used by central banks to increase the money supply and stimulate economic growth. While it can be an effective tool, it is not without risks, and its use is typically reserved for times of economic slowdown or recession when traditional monetary policy tools are no longer effective. How the U.S. money printing strategy works. The U.S. money printing strategy, also known as quantitative easing, involves the creation of new money by the U.S. Federal Reserve through the purchase of government bonds and other securities. The goal of the strategy is to stimulate economic growth by increasing the amount of money available for lending and investment. The Federal Reserve creates new money by electronically crediting the accounts of banks and other financial institutions in exchange for the purchase of government bonds or other securities. This process interjects new money into the economy, which can then be lent out by banks and other financial institutions to individuals and businesses. The Federal Reserve typically carries out QE in a series of purchases, with each purchase aimed at injecting a specific amount of money into the economy. The amount of money created through each round of QE can range from hundreds of billions to trillions of dollars, depending on the severity of the economic situation. One of the key goals of the U.S. money printing strategy is to lower interest rates and stimulate lending and investment. By increasing the amount of money available for lending, the Federal Reserve aims to encourage banks and other financial institutions to offer loans at lower interest rates, which can then encourage individuals and businesses to borrow and invest. Another goal of the U.S. money printing strategy is to boost the stock market and other financial markets. When the Federal Reserve purchases government bonds and other securities, it increases the demand for those assets, which can drive up their prices. This, in turn, can lead to a higher stock price and other financial assets, which can boost consumer confidence and encourage investment. While the U.S. money printing strategy can be an effective tool for stimulating economic growth, it is not without risks. One of the main concerns with QE is the potential for inflationary pressures to build up over time. If too much money is injected into the economy, it can lead to an increase in prices and a decrease in the value of the currency. Another potential risk of QE is that it can lead to asset price bubbles. When the Federal Reserve purchases large amounts of securities, it can drive up the prices of those securities, which can lead to overvalued markets and bubbles that eventually burst. The arguments for and against the U.S. money printing strategy. The U.S. money printing strategy has been a topic of debate since its implementation following the 2008 financial crisis. Supporters of QE argue that it can stimulate economic growth, create jobs, boost asset prices, and serve as an alternative tool when traditional monetary policy tools are no longer effective. By increasing the money supply and lowering interest rates, QE can encourage lending and investment, leading to economic growth and job creation. Higher asset prices can also increase consumer confidence and encourage investment. On the other hand, opponents of QE raise concerns about inflation, asset bubbles, wealth inequality, and decreased confidence in the currency. One of the main concerns with QE is the potential for inflationary pressures to build up over time, leading to an increase in prices and a decrease in the value of the currency. QE can also lead to overvalued markets and asset bubbles that eventually burst, leading to financial instability. Additionally, QE can benefit those who hold financial assets, such as stocks, at the expense of those who do not, leading to greater wealth inequality. Finally, if the public loses confidence in the currency due to the perception that it is being devalued through QE, it can lead to decreased demand for the currency. The effectiveness of QE remains a topic of debate, and there are valued arguments both for and against this strategy. While it can stimulate economic growth and create jobs, it can also lead to inflation and financial instability. It is important for central banks to carefully consider the potential risks and benefits of QE before implementing the strategy. In the case of the U.S. money printing strategy, the Federal Reserve has implemented several rounds of QE since the 2008 financial crisis. While the effectiveness of these policies remains a topic of debate, they have been credited with helping to stabilize the economy and prevent a deeper recession. However, there are concerns that continued reliance on QE could lead to unintended consequences, such as inflation and asset bubbles. In conclusion, the U.S. money printing strategy is a complex and controversial issue with far-reaching implications for the global economy. While there are arguments on both sides of the debate, it is clear that the consequences of this policy will continue to be debated for years to come. As individuals and a society, it is important to stay informed about these issues and to engage in thoughtful dialogue about the best ways to promote economic growth and stability. If you found this video helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel for more informative content on important economic and financial topics. Thank you for watching.